That seat belongs to my real daughter. Now get out." My stepfather said those exact words to me at his retirement dinner, in front of close to 100 people. And the second those words left his mouth, he shoved me. I stumbled backward off the stage and hit that ballroom floor hard, right hip first, the seam of my grandmother's dress splitting wide open. I lay there looking up at the man I had called Dad for over 20 years, and he stared back at me like I was a total stranger who had walked into the wrong room. But what he didn't know, what nobody in that room knew, was that the woman he had just handed my chair to had been quietly stealing from him for almost a full year. And my husband had every single piece of proof tucked inside his jacket pocket, waiting for exactly the right moment. If this story is already pulling at something inside you, hit that like button right now and make sure you're subscribed, because this story gets so much deeper before it gets better and you don't want to miss a single part of it. Drop your city and your local time down in the comments. I genuinely want to know where in the world you're watching from. Okay, let's get into it. My name is Nadia Okafor. I'm 33 years old. I live in Durham, North Carolina, where I work as a licensed structural engineer at a consulting firm. My team handles bridge checks, highway projects, water system reviews, the kind of work where getting something wrong isn't just expensive, it can cost lives. I've been doing this for 7 years. I love this work because my stepfather was the one who first showed me what it meant to build something that lasts. Which is what makes everything you're about to hear so hard to say out loud. This is the story of the night I almost lost the only real father I ever had. Let me take you back to where it all started. Not the dinner. The very beginning. My biological dad was gone before I was old enough to remember him. My mom, Gloria, raised me on her own in a 2-bedroom rental right there in Durham. She worked as a patient intake coordinator at a local hospital. Long shifts, hard hours, and somehow still showed up for every single school play, every parent meeting, every Saturday morning. She was the kind of woman who made a small, quiet life feel completely full. She had this habit of humming while she cooked, totally off-key, completely unbothered by it, and that sound made our little kitchen feel like the warmest room I have ever been in. Before or since. When I was 9 years old, Mom started seeing a man named Dale Whitfield. Dale was a project manager at a large commercial construction company based out of Greensboro, North Carolina, about an hour from where we lived in Durham. He was the kind of man who got to every job site before sunrise and was usually the last one out at the end of the day. He wore the same steel-toed boots until they nearly fell apart. He talked about how buildings were built the way other people talk about the weather, constantly, naturally, like it was just how his brain worked. He wasn't my father by blood. He was honest about that from day one. He also made it absolutely clear that this didn't change a single thing about how he saw me. When I was 10, he drove me out to one of his construction sites on a Saturday morning and spent 2 full hours showing me how to read a blueprint. I was bored for the first 20 minutes. By the end of that second hour, I was completely hooked. That was Dale's thing. He could pull you into caring about something you never knew you cared about without it ever feeling like a lesson. Mom and Dale got married when I was 12. Small backyard ceremony. Maybe 30 guests. Sheet cake from the grocery store bakery because Mom said she'd rather put the money toward a honeymoon. I wore a yellow dress and walked her down the aisle because she said nobody else deserved the job. It was one of the best days of my life. One of the best days any of us ever had. We had 3 really good years together, all 3 of us. Then Mom was told she had a very fast-moving form of ovarian cancer when I was 15. She fought as hard as anyone I've ever seen fight. 14 months. She passed away 2 days before Christmas. I was 16 years old. After she was gone, it was just Dale and me in that house in Durham. He didn't fall apart, at least not where I could see it. Kept all of her routines going. Sunday morning pancakes. Tuesday trivia shows on TV. Walks to the corner store when the weather was nice. He never said out loud why he kept doing those things. He didn't need to. We both understood. It was the only way we had left to keep her in the room with us. 2 years later, Dale told me he'd met someone at a work trip. Her name was Pamela Sutton. She was a woman from Charlotte who had been married before and worked as an event planner. She was put together, careful, the kind of person who always seemed to be performing just a little bit, even in casual moments. He said she made him feel less alone. I said I was glad. I meant it. Mostly. Pamela had a daughter named Kendall, 20 years old at the time, 4 years younger than me. Kendall was bright and friendly, and within 2 weeks of meeting Dale, she was calling him Dad at the dinner table. I watched Dale tear up the very first time she said it. He pulled her into a hug like she was something precious he hadn't known he was missing. I was standing in the kitchen doorway holding a glass of water, watching it happen. I told myself I was fine with it. I was 24. I had my own place. I had a career I was building. I didn't need to be anyone's center of attention. But something cold moved through me standing in that doorway. Not jealousy exactly. More like the specific feeling you get when you watch the ground shift under something you thought was solid. I kept showing up. Every holiday. Every birthday. Every Sunday morning phone call without fail. Dale and Pamela got married 16 months after they started dating at a mountain venue outside of Asheville. Nice decor, open bar, the whole big production. Pamela's event planning background was clear in every detail. I gave a toast at the reception. Pamela's aunt pulled me aside afterward and told me I was handling things very gracefully. That's the kind of thing people say when they know something isn't right but nobody wants to say it. After the wedding, things started to change. Slowly, the way a tide goes out. You don't notice what's missing until you're standing on bare sand wondering where the water went. Mom's photographs came down from the living room wall. First to the hallway. Then to a shelf in the back bedroom. Then into a bin in the garage. The quilt Mom had hand-stitched from patches of my old childhood clothes, one of the last things she ever made with her own hands, ended up in a plastic tub next to the holiday stuff. Her backyard garden, where she'd planted sunflowers and wildflowers the spring before she got sick, got dug up and replaced with a stone patio and outdoor furniture. Every single visit, something else of hers was gone. Then Dale called me, in a conversation that lasted less than 5 minutes, to tell me that he and Pamela were turning my childhood bedroom into a study room for Kendall, who had signed up for some online classes. When I asked about my things, he said Pamela had boxed everything up and it was in the garage. I drove to the house. There were my things. 3 cardboard boxes stacked right on top of Mom's handmade quilt. I didn't say a word. I loaded the boxes into my car. I drove back to Durham. I sat in the parking garage of my apartment building and cried until I had nothing left. Then I went upstairs and cooked dinner because life does not stop for the moments that break you open. That was how I handled things. Swallowing instead of saying something. I told myself it was being the bigger person. Looking back honestly, it was fear. Fear that if I pushed too hard I would find out exactly how replaceable I had become. About 3 years before the retirement dinner, I missed Dale's birthday party because I was stuck on a job site in Wilmington, North Carolina. A water project had found a serious structural problem and I was the lead engineer on it. I could not leave. I called Dale on the actual day of his birthday, got his voicemail and left a long message. I mailed a card. I texted twice that week. No response. I told myself Pamela had been working on his feelings about it. I gave it a month and tried again. Voicemail. Tried the next month. And the month after that. For 3 straight years, 158 phone calls. 47 text messages. Not one single reply. I drove to the house in Greensboro twice. Both times Pamela answered the door. Arms folded. That same calm, practiced look on her face. Dale's not interested in talking right now, Nadia. Please give him some space. I could have pushed past her. I thought about it both times, standing on that front step. But that same quiet stubbornness that had carried me through losing my mom, through building my career from nothing, through every hard thing I'd ever had to face alone, it kept my feet locked in place. If he wanted me gone, I was not going to beg. I would hurt. But I would not beg. What I did not know, what I couldn't have known, was that my calls had never once reached him. Every call had gone straight to a blocked number. Every text I sent had been read by someone else and deleted before Dale ever had the chance to see a single word of it. His phone had never once shown my name. Not one time in 3 years. I found all of that out at the retirement dinner. But before I get to that, and I need you to stay with me because this is where the whole story turns, let me tell you about Marcus. Marcus Webb came into my life when I was 27 at a work conference in Charlotte. He was an accountant who specialized in tracking down financial fraud, working out of Raleigh at a private firm. He was on a panel that morning and he said something that made me put down my phone and actually listen. He said that financial fraud and buildings falling down have more in common than most people think, because both look completely fine right up until the moment they don't, and by the time anyone notices, the damage has already been done. I found him at the coffee table after the session ended and introduced myself. We talked for nearly 3 hours. I missed 2 sessions I had paid to attend. I did not care even slightly. Marcus is a very specific kind of man. He double-checks everything, not because he doesn't trust people, but because he genuinely believes that being careful is a way of showing love. He doesn't make promises he hasn't already thought through. He doesn't say things he doesn't mean. He took me out to propose at a small greasy diner in Raleigh because he knew I would love that more than any fancy place he could have chosen, and he was completely right. We got married at the Durham County Courthouse 14 months before the retirement dinner. Small ceremony, 11 guests, lunch at my favorite taco spot afterward. It was exactly what I wanted. It was perfect. Now, about 8 weeks before Dale's retirement dinner, Marcus got a phone call at his office in Raleigh from a woman named Rosalind Chambers. Rosalind was 63 years old and had spent 26 years working in the employee benefits office at Dale's construction company in Greensboro. She had personally handled every retirement form, every insurance update, every single form about who would receive Dale's money if something happened to him in over 30 years with that company. Marcus didn't tell me about that phone call. Not right away. The invitation to Dale's retirement dinner landed in my work email. Not from Dale, not from Pamela, but as part of a big mass email the company sent to all family emergency contacts on file. Dale had listed me as a contact years earlier, and apparently no one had ever taken my name off the list. The invitation read, "You are cordially invited to celebrate the retirement of Dale R. Whitfield. 32 years of dedicated service. The Harrington Ballroom at the Crown Point Hotel, Greensboro, North Carolina. Saturday evening, 7 o'clock. Cocktail attire requested." I stared at that email for a long time. Marcus walked into the kitchen and sat down across from me at the table. He looked at my face and then he looked at the screen. "You need to go," he said. "He hasn't spoken to me in 3 years, Marcus." Which is exactly why you need to be in that room. She controls everything at home. She can't control a room full of 100 people watching. Something about the way he said that landed in the back of my mind and stuck there. But I didn't push on it. I was already thinking about what I was going to wear. I chose my grandmother's dress. Deep burgundy, fitted through the waist, 3/4 sleeves ending just at the knee. My grandmother on my mother's side had worn it to her own retirement party years before she passed. I'd had it taken in to fit me, but the fabric was still hers, still held that specific warmth that old loved fabric holds. I wore it for Dale because my grandmother had truly adored him. She'd met him twice before she died and told me privately both times that he was good people, and that good people were harder to find than most folks ever admitted. I wanted some part of her in that room with me that night. Marcus drove. Crown Point Hotel sat at the edge of downtown Greensboro. Marble lobby floors, a tall-ceilinged ballroom, round tables dressed in white linen, warm light from chandeliers overhead. The ballroom entrance, a large framed photo of Dale stood on an easel. 30 years younger, hard hat on, grinning wide, a half-built structure rising behind him. I found the seating chart near the door and ran my eyes down it. The head table, Dale Whitfield. Pamela Whitfield. Kendall Sutton. For company bosses. My name was not on it. Anywhere. Near the back of the room, far from the head table, a small place card at a side table next to the kitchen hallway read, Rosalind Chambers, Benefits Office. She'd been put at the same table Marcus and I would end up at, tucked beside a support column near the kitchen door, as far from the center of the room as you could get while still technically being inside it. I had about 4 seconds to decide whether to stay or go. I stayed. Pamela found me before I had taken a dozen steps inside. She appeared from my left like she'd been waiting right there, which I'm pretty sure she had. She was dressed perfectly, deep plum wrap dress, gold earrings, hair swept back in a style that looked easy and had definitely cost a lot of time and money. Her smile landed on me and disappeared in under a second. Nadia. She said my name like a question she'd already decided the answer to. I honestly did not expect you to show up. From that table I could see Dale clearly at the front of the room. He wore a dark blazer over a charcoal shirt, the kind of outfit Pamela had definitely picked out for him. A nice watch on his wrist caught the light every time he moved. He sat the way he always sat, upright, steady, the posture of a man who had spent decades on construction sites and never quite left them behind. Kendall sat at his right. Light-colored dress, delicate gold jewelry, her hair falling in soft waves. Her hand rested on Dale's arm and she leaned into him in that specific way that looks natural when it's real and looks practiced when it isn't. Dale glanced across the room once. Our eyes met for just a moment. I held still and waited. For him to recognize me. For something. Anything. He looked away. Before I could decide what to do with that, a hand came to rest gently on my shoulder. I turned around. Rosalind Chambers was a small woman with silver hair and reading glasses hanging from a beaded chain around her neck. She carried a leather folder the way some people carry a handbag, always automatically like she'd be lost without it. She had walked all the way across the room to reach our table. She pulled out a chair, sat down close, and spoke in a voice low enough that only Marcus and I could hear. Honey, I'm Rosalind. I'm the one who reached out to your husband 2 months ago. I am truly glad you came tonight because there are things happening to your father's retirement money that he has no idea about, and tonight might be the only real shot we get to put it right in front of him. She squeezed my hand. Her eyes were very steady. Then she said 6 words that changed everything I thought I understood about the last 3 years. Someone has been messing with his paperwork. Before I could form a single question, Pamela walked up to the front of the room and took the microphone. She tapped it twice, thanked everyone for coming, and then gave the most perfectly put-together tribute speech I have ever seen in my life. She talked about Dale's hard work, his character, his leadership over 32 years. She was genuinely great at this. Event planning was her job and it showed in every single word. The entire room was completely with her. Then the lights dimmed slightly and a slideshow started up on the screen behind her. 32 years of Dale's life at that company, squeezed into photographs. Dale on job sites. Dale with work crews. Dale getting awards. And then the personal photos started coming through. Pamela and Dale at a winery on vacation. Kendall and Dale at a football game. The 3 of them on a beach trip, arms around each other, all smiling for the camera. Photo after photo after photo. Not one single image of my mother. Not one image of me. 32 years of this man's life, and my mother, the woman who had been his wife, who had trusted him with her daughter when she could no longer be there herself, had been completely cut out of the story. Removed like she had never existed. Like I had never existed. Marcus found my hand under the table and held it tight. Then Pamela leaned back to the microphone with a special kind of warmth in her voice. I want to take a moment to recognize someone very special. Dale's daughter, Kendall, the absolute light of his life, who has been right by his side through every single chapter. Kendall's sweetheart, stand up for us. Kendall stood. Smiled. Gave a little wave. The room gave her a warm round of applause. I sat perfectly still. Real quick, If you are watching this and you have ever had your place in a family quietly taken away from you piece by piece until one day you showed up and found out your name had been erased completely, drop a comment right now. Just say I see you or tell me what happened. 'Cause you deserve to be seen. And hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what comes next, because I promise you it gets both much worse and much better from here. A heavy-set man in his 60s came to our table. He had the easy, steady confidence of someone who had worked alongside Dale for a long time. His name was Gerald, and he'd been with the company in Greensboro for nearly 30 years. Hold on, aren't you Nadia? Dale's stepdaughter? The engineer? That's me. He talked about you all the time, Gerald said. Brought in your graduation photo when you passed your engineering exams. Told everybody you had your mama's brains and his stubbornness in equal measure. I opened my mouth. Nothing that felt right came out. I honestly don't know what happened between us, Gerald, I finally said. But I'm here tonight to find out. The slideshow ended. Dinner plates came out. Conversations warmed back up around the room. Pamela drifted back to the head table and settled her hand on Dale's shoulder like a woman marking what was hers. I set my napkin on the table. I stood up. Marcus looked up at me. You absolutely sure about this? I did not drive all this way in my grandmother's dress to eat rolls in a corner. I walked straight through the center of that ballroom, past Gerald's table, past the company bosses, past the younger staff who had no idea who I was. Close to 100 people, and I felt every single pair of eyes in the room find me as I crossed that floor. The head table sat on a low raised platform, maybe 6 inches off the ground. Just enough to feel like a stage. I stepped up. There was one empty chair at the far end, a seat belonging to someone who hadn't shown up that night. I rested my hand on the back of it. Dale. He looked up. His jaw went tight immediately, the same way it used to on a job site when something had gone wrong and he was already running through how to fix it. It's been 3 years, I said. I really need to talk to you. Silence fell over the head table. Pamela leaned in close to Dale's ear and said something I couldn't hear. Whatever it was, it hit. Dale pushed back his chair and stood up. 64 years old, wide through the shoulders, still carrying himself the way a man does when he's spent 3 decades running big construction jobs. He looked at me and I looked back at him and I searched his face for any trace of the man who had once spent a full Saturday teaching a 10-year-old girl how to read blueprints because he believed she deserved to understand how things were built. He grabbed both my shoulders and shoved me backward off the platform. My heel caught the edge. I went down hard onto the ballroom floor, right hip first. The side seam of my grandmother's dress split open with a clean, sharp rip. His voice carried to every corner of that room. That seat belongs to my real daughter. You gave up your right to be at this table when you walked away from this family. I want you to leave, Nadia. Behind him, Kendall slid smoothly out of her own chair and into the empty one, the one I had been reaching for, and settled into it like she had been waiting for exactly this moment to open up. It's all right, Dad, she said softly, placing her hand on his arm. She can't do anything to you. Close to 100 people in that room. People who had known Dale for decades. People who knew what family was supposed to look like. Not one of them moved. Not one of them said a word. The room drew a breath and held it. I sat on that ballroom floor and felt the cold come up through the thin fabric of my grandmother's dress. My bag had come open when I fell. My phone, my lip balm, and a photograph had scattered across the floor. The photo had slid almost a foot away from me, a picture of me and Dale at one of his job sites in Greensboro. I was 11 years old. He had taken me along on that Saturday because he didn't want me sitting at home alone with the weight of my mother's illness. In the photo, I am wearing a hard hat 4 sizes too big and I am grinning like I have no idea what is coming for us. He has one arm around my shoulders and his head is thrown back laughing. I have carried that photo with me everywhere for years. I did not cry. I looked up at the man who used to tell me that the real strength of any structure lives in the parts nobody can see. And what I saw in his face was the worst possible thing. Certainty. Total, complete certainty. The certainty of a man who had been told the same story every single day for 3 years until he could no longer tell it apart from something he had actually lived through himself. I put my palms flat on the floor. I was maybe 4 seconds away from getting up, grabbing my bag, and walking out of that hotel for the very last time. Then I heard a chair move. Not mine. Marcus's. Stop what you're doing right now and make sure you are subscribed, because what Marcus pulled out of that jacket pocket in the next 2 minutes changed everything, and I mean everything. And if you've ever had someone stand up for you when you were too broken to stand up for yourself, I want you to drop that in the comments below. Tell me about it. 'Cause those people deserve to be talked about. My husband stood up from our corner table. He didn't rush. He straightened his jacket, pulled at each shirt cuff, one slow, deliberate tug on each side. I had seen him do that exact thing before every single important meeting I had ever watched him walk into. It was his tell. It meant the work was already done, everything had already been checked and double-checked, and now he was simply going to lay it out. Pamela saw him get up and something passed across her face before she sealed it back over. Marcus. Her voice was aimed to carry just far enough. Kindest thing you can do for everyone in this room right now is take Nadia home and let tonight be what it was supposed to be. Marcus didn't look at her. He walked across the ballroom to me. He held out his hand. I took it. He brought me to my feet. He looked at the torn seam on my grandmother's dress, and something moved behind his eyes that had absolutely nothing calm about it. He put it aside. He studied me. He turned to face the head table. Mr. Whitfield. His voice was level and clear. I'm Marcus Webb. I'm Nadia's husband. I'm also someone who investigates financial fraud for a living, which matters here. I need about 3 minutes of your time before we go anywhere. Dale's face went red. I've got nothing to say to you. Take your wife and get out of my event. I understand that, sir. And we will go. But I need you to do just one thing for yourself first. Right now, tonight. When is the last time you went into your own phone and personally checked your blocked contacts list? Dale blinked. The anger on his face shifted into something less sure. What? Your phone, sir. Settings. Blocked numbers. When did you last look at that yourself? Pamela was moving before he even finished the sentence. She crossed to the platform in 4 fast steps. Marcus, whatever you think you're doing right now. I'm asking your husband one question, Marcus said, and for the first time all evening he looked straight at her. That is all this is. One question. Now, I have to stop here for just a second because in that exact moment I was done. I really was. I had been shoved off a platform at my own stepfather's retirement dinner. My grandmother's dress was torn. My pride was somewhere on the floor behind me. I was ready to walk out of that hotel, drive back to Durham, and build a life that simply didn't have Dale Whitfield in it anymore. But here's what I didn't know. Marcus had spent the 3 weeks before that night in his home office in Raleigh going through papers I had no idea existed. He hadn't slept well in 3 weeks. He hadn't told me a single thing about any of it. And what he had folded inside that jacket pocket was the exact reason Rosalind Chambers had shown up tonight and taken her seat at a side table near the kitchen to wait for this moment. Stay with me. 'Cause right here is where everything changed. While Marcus held his ground at that head table, Pamela did what she had always been truly great at. She worked the room. She turned to the guests with open hands and a sorry expression that somehow made her look both distressed and gracious at the same time. Everyone, I am so sorry for this. Tonight belongs to Dale. 32 years of incredible work, and I am not going to let this ruin it. She put her hand on Dale's shoulder and leaned close to him. Table microphone was still on, and the room was quiet enough that the edge of her whisper carried. This is what she does. She always makes everything about herself. Dale nodded. But his hands were gripping the edge of the table hard enough to make his knuckles white. He had just shoved his stepdaughter off a platform in front of every person he'd spent 32 years earning the respect of. Something was breaking through whatever wall Pamela had built inside him, something he couldn't quite hold back. Kendall put her hand on his arm. "I'm here, Dad. I'm not going anywhere." A few sympathetic looks from nearby guests. Soft murmurs. The story Pamela had been telling for years was holding together, but only just. Rosalind had not moved from near the back of the room. She was watching everything with the still, patient expression of someone who knows from experience exactly how close the right moment is. Gerald broke the quiet from his table. Not loudly, but every word landed. "That wasn't right, Dale. That woman drove an hour to be here. You don't put your hands on your daughter like that." Dale said nothing. Pamela raised her champagne glass and said something gracious about family and love. A few glasses went up, the kind of toast people go along with because saying no would take more courage than the moment was asking for. Pamela stepped down from the platform and came straight toward me. I was standing near the coat check, my thumb running along the torn seam of my grandmother's dress. She stopped a few feet away and dropped her voice. "Nadia, sweetheart. The most loving thing you can do for Dale right now, honestly for yourself too, is to step out quietly and let him have his night. He put me on the floor, Pamela. Because you came to a private event you weren't invited to and pushed your way up to the head table. If you actually cared about Dale, you would have respected what he's made clear for 3 years. What he made clear or what you made up for him." Her face didn't move, but something behind her eyes went very flat, very fast. "Let me be straight with you. Dale's retirement, his benefits, his money, all of it has been handled. You are not part of any of those plans. You never were. Leave quietly tonight and this stays a painful memory. Stay and make a scene and I will make sure every single person in this room knows exactly what kind of person you are and what you've put this family through." I should have left. Everything in me was pointing at the exit. But one specific thing she had said kept turning over in my head and wouldn't stop. His money. All of it has been handled. That wasn't how a wife talked about protecting her husband's feelings. That was how someone talked about managing an account. What kind of daughter calls her father every week for 3 years and never once gets through? I said. Pamela's face moved. Just barely, maybe half a second, but something raw and startled showed up and got buried almost immediately. I caught it. She had always known about the calls. She had known the whole time. Marcus had been watching the whole thing from across the room. He told me later that he had never planned on going after Pamela directly. Plan from the start had been to get Dale to look at proof with his own eyes, in a room full of people watching, before she had any chance to spin it. Pamela was just the wall between him and that moment. He walked back to the head table at a slow, deliberate pace, the kind of pace that makes everyone in a room set down their fork. Pamela moved to get between him and Dale. "You are not family. This is a family matter and you have no business in it." "I hear that." Marcus kept his eyes on Dale. "Mr. Whitfield, one more question before I leave you alone. When did you personally last look at the names listed as the people who would get your retirement money if something happened to you? Not hand it off to someone else to handle. Look at it yourself." The shift in the room was immediate. People who had been half-heartedly staring at their plates stopped. Dale's expression changed. The anger drained away and something older took its place. He was trying to remember. Years ago. "Pamela handles all of that." He stopped. He heard what he was about to say. "She handles all of it," Marcus finished. "I know she does, sir." "That's the problem." Pamela's voice cut in fast and sharp. "Marcus, you are a fraud investigator from out of town with no connection to this family and no business in this conversation. What you're doing right now is deliberately." Marcus reached into his jacket and placed a sealed envelope on the white tablecloth in front of Dale. Thick. 30 pages or more. 2 papers, sir. That's all I'm asking for. 60 seconds. Pamela moved physically, putting herself between Dale and the envelope, her voice going warm and urgent. Dale, please. Don't do this. This is a setup. They are trying to destroy your night, your retirement, everything. Ma'am. Gerald's voice came from 3 tables over. Flat and final. Let the man look at what's in that envelope. Pamela went quiet. Marcus opened the envelope and laid 2 papers side by side on the white tablecloth. The first one was dated 12 years ago. First person to receive money, Nadia Okafor Whitfield, 55%. Second person to receive money, estate of Gloria Whitfield, 45%. The signature at the bottom was clearly Dale's. The thick press of the D, the wide open loop of the W, I would have known that handwriting anywhere. The second paper was dated 9 months ago. Only person to receive money, Kendall Marie Sutton, 100%. Dale reached for the second paper. He held it up close to his face, then stretched it out at arm's length. His lips moved slightly as he followed the signature line. That's wrong, he said slowly. My W. I always make a wide open loop on my W. This one, it's narrow. This is not how I write my name. No, sir, Marcus said quietly. Because you didn't write it. Dale set the paper down with the careful, slow hands of a man who suddenly wasn't sure how to hold something that had seemed safe 2 minutes ago. Pamela pressed in close to Dale's side fast. Those papers were made by him. He works in this field. He knows exactly how to put something together that looks real. I have been signing my name for 64 years. Dale's voice was quiet in a way that was far more alarming than yelling would have been. I know what my signature looks like. This is not it. Kendall pushed back her chair. All the color had left her face. Dad, please, this is what Nadia does, she puts together. Kendall. Dale's voice was perfectly flat. She sat back down. Pamela made one more try, softer now, almost gentle. Honey, you did sign those papers. You just don't remember because retirement has been so stressful and sometimes our minds. There is nothing wrong with my memory, Pamela. Then Rosalind Chambers stood up. She moved from the back of the ballroom without rushing. 26 years of working in benefits had given her a perfect feel for when the right moment had come. She stopped at the edge of the raised platform and waited until every eye in the room had found her. Excuse me. I believe I have something important to add here. Pamela turned on her immediately. Rosalind, this is a private family. I have handled Mr. Whitfield's work benefits for 26 years, Rosalind said evenly. When a form changing who receives a person's retirement money is sent in with a signature that looks wrong, that stops being a personal family matter, that becomes a company matter. I raised this with Human Resources 2 months ago. Every conversation in that ballroom stopped. 9 months ago, she continued, a form to change who would receive Mr. Whitfield's retirement money was sent in by email. In 26 years, Mr. Whitfield has never once sent in any benefits paperwork by email. He has always come directly to my office. In person. Every single time. Dale nodded just once. That's right, Rosalind. Every single time. In person. That email also came from a private personal account, not Mr. Whitfield's work address. When I put the signature on that form next to the real signatures we have on file, they did not match. I brought it to HR and they opened a review. I reached out to Mr. Webb because he is listed as Nadia's emergency contact, and I believe this family had a right to know what I had found. Pamela's voice dropped to something sharp. You had absolutely no right to bring anyone outside this company into this. I had every professional responsibility to do exactly what I did. Rosalind's tone didn't shift one bit. I have watched this man build his retirement for over 2 decades. I was not going to stand by while someone took it apart. Marcus reached back into the envelope and pulled out a second set of papers, pages stapled together, full of columns showing dates, times, and phone numbers. Mr. Whitfield. Your wife told you that Nadia had stopped caring about you, that she had walked away, that she never tried to reach you. He put the papers on the table next to the forms. These are the phone records from Nadia's phone carrier. 158 outgoing calls to your personal phone number. 47 text messages. Every week, sometimes more than once a week, for 36 straight months. Dale reached for the papers with both hands. His finger moved down the columns slowly. Row after row after row. Every Sunday without fail. For 3 full years. My phone never rang, he said. His voice had gone strange and hollow. I never saw any of this. Not once. Check your phone right now, sir. Marcus said it gently. Settings. Blocked numbers. Go look. Dale reached into his jacket. He moved through his phone settings with the slow, careful touch of a man who had never gone looking in that part of his own phone before. And then he stopped. He stared at the screen. One number. Blocked. The area code was Durham, where Nadia and Marcus lived. He looked up from the screen and looked at Pamela. You blocked her. The words came out barely above a whisper. You blocked my daughter's number. Pamela opened her mouth. 158 calls. Dale's hands had started to shake. She called me every single week. And you stood inside my house and told me she had cut me off and walked away from this family. Pamela had nothing ready for this. The whole performance she had been giving for over 20 years, the calm wife, the caring stepmother, the woman who was only ever protecting her husband, broke open all at once. Fine. Yes. I blocked her number. She was dragging you back, Dale. Every time you even thought about her, you got sad and quiet and you started drifting back to things that were done. Your first wife. The old house. That whole past life. I was protecting what we had built. She was my daughter. The way Dale said that word, daughter, it wasn't loud. It was the sound of something that had been holding weight for too long finally giving out. Pamela pushed forward. She was a grown adult who refused to let you move on. Every single conversation you had with her set you back months. I was protecting our marriage. Our family. Kendall needed. Kendall made a small, tight sound. Mom. Pamela turned on her own daughter with a fierceness that made Kendall physically pull back in her chair. Don't, Pamela said sharply. Every single thing I have done has been for you. Because your father walked out and left us with nothing and you had all that business debt and I had to make sure. She stopped herself. But it was already out there. Had to make sure of what, Pamela? Dale's voice was completely quiet. Absolutely quiet. Pamela's fight left her in one breath. That Kendall would be taken care of. Her father left and we had nothing. The business failed and she owes more than I know how to fix. I had to think about her future. So you forged my name. I moved money around. For our family. The family we built. He repeated it slowly, like he was trying to figure out what language it was in. While you cut the daughter I raised out of every photo in this house. While you blocked her number so I would think she had left me. While you forged my name to steal the retirement I spent 32 years building. Pamela said nothing. For the first time since I had known her, she had absolutely nothing. Gerald's voice came from 3 tables over. Quiet, but every word hit home. She tried to reach you, Dale. 158 times. You deserved to know that a long time ago. Then Rosalind opened her folder one final time and pulled out another set of papers. Mr. Whitfield. There is one more thing. The entire ballroom went still. 18 months ago, a separate request was sent in to add Kendall Sutton as someone who would receive money from your company life insurance policy. I turned it down at the time because she doesn't qualify under company policy. But I kept all the paperwork from that attempt. Personal account used to send that request matches the same account that's sent in the fake retirement forms. Both from the same person. Both attempts. 9 months apart. Same source, Marcus confirmed. Both of them. Dale closed his eyes. He sat at the head of his own retirement dinner and just breathed for a long moment. The way a person breathes when they are finally understanding something big that should have been clear to them a long time ago. Your retirement savings, your 401k and your pension together, Marcus said. Roughly $510,000. Those fake forms had gone through without anyone catching it. Every single dollar would have gone to Kendall Sutton the day you officially retired. Everything I worked for, Dale said quietly. Every bit of it. In someone else's name. I did not know the signature was fake. Kendall's voice came from the edge of the platform. She was on her feet, holding her small bag with both hands. What was in her voice now was not the smooth, practiced thing she had been running all night. It was something real and genuinely scared. My mom told me you had agreed to the change. She said you wanted to make sure I was taken care of. I believed her. I thought you had signed it yourself. Pamela was staring at the tablecloth. But you knew I was calling, I said. I kept my voice steady. You knew I was blocked. You knew I was being kept out. You knew all of that, Kendall. She held my eyes. Her chin shook. I told myself it wasn't my business. She swallowed. That whatever was happening between you and Dale and my mom was grown-up stuff I didn't fully understand. My real dad left when I was 9. Just moved away and started a whole new family like we didn't exist. Dale was the first person who ever showed up for me consistently. He came to my graduation. He helped me move into my first apartment. He called me when my business failed just to make sure I was okay. I was so scared of losing that. You looked the other way, I said. Her silence was the answer. I understand wanting a dad, I told her. I do. I lost mine too, remember that. But wanting something doesn't make it okay to let someone erase another person to get it. She nodded once, small, honest, tight. She picked up her bag and her wrap from the head table and stepped down from the platform. Pamela called after her once. Kendall walked straight to the exit and did not look back. Pamela stood alone at the head table. Both chairs beside her empty. The fake forms and phone records and benefits papers spread across the white linen like a court case laid out in front of a judge. She smoothed her dress, squared her shoulders. She looked around the room one last time, close to 100 faces, most of them now looking anywhere except at her. No one on her side. No story left to tell. Dale, she said. I think you should go home and think this through clearly before. You go home, Pamela. Dale's eyes were still on the papers. Tonight. I'll talk to you again when there's a lawyer in the room. Pamela picked up her bag. She walked the full length of that ballroom and the only sound was her heels on the floor. The door she stopped, turned, and looked straight at me. Not at Dale. Not at Marcus. At me. The look on her face had nothing in it that could be called nice. Only anger. The kind that has been building and sharpening for a very long time. I looked back at her. I had spent 3 years learning to hold silence. I was very good at it by then. I gave her the last look. I held the last word. She walked out. The room let go of the breath it had been holding for close to an hour. Conversations came back slowly at first, then with more confidence. Gerald walked over to Dale and put his hand on the man's arm without saying a word. 2 of the company bosses did the same. Quiet, steady presence of people who had known him for decades and were choosing to stay close. Dale got up from his chair. He moved through that room slowly, past the flowers and the champagne and the large framed photo of himself from 30 years ago that now seemed to be from a completely different story. He walked past all of it and stopped in front of me. We stood about 2 feet apart. His eyes went to the dress. That belonged to your grandmother, he said. Yes, you wore her dress tonight. I wore it for you. And for Mom. 'Cause she would have wanted to be in this room. Something in his face gave way. Not all at once, more like a slow collapse of something that had been holding under far too much weight for far too long. He looked down at his own hands. The hands that had pushed me off that platform less than an hour ago. "I put my hands on you," he said. "Yes, you did. In front of everyone in this room." "Yes." He looked at the nice watch on his wrist, the expensive one Pamela had given him. He looked at it for a long moment, then back at me. "I swallowed everything she told me," he said. "Every single word of it. Because believing it was easier than admitting I had been losing you and didn't know how to stop it. After your mother passed, I didn't know how to do any of this on my own. Pamela made everything feel manageable. She handled everything. And I let her because if I had handled things myself, I would have had to face how badly I was failing at all of it." He raised his voice just slightly, enough to carry to the tables closest to us. "I owe my daughter an apology in front of people who can hear it. Not just for tonight. For 3 years. I chose to believe a lie because the truth was harder than I knew how to carry. She never stopped reaching out to me. She called 158 times and I never once knew to look. That is my failure. Pamela lied. But I chose to keep believing it." He turned back to me. "I am sorry I put my hands on you. I am sorry I didn't answer. I am sorry I let them take your mother's photographs off the walls. I am sorry, Nadia." I stood there and let the full weight of it settle. "I accept that, Dad." I said it slowly and I meant every word of it. But accepting an apology and giving back trust are two very different things. That is going to take a long time. I know it will. Good. Then this is where we begin. Not where we finish. The very beginning. Something small and real shifted between us, the way a heavy load settles properly when the right support finally goes back into place. Pamela came back through the ballroom doors one more time. She swept back in with the energy of someone who had been standing just outside those doors running through her options. "I want everyone in this room to understand what you just watched. Marcus and Nadia planned every bit of this. This was a planned attack. I have been a good wife and a good mother to this family for over 20 years and I will not stand here and be treated like a—" "The fake signature is sitting right there on that table," Gerald said from across the room. "Everybody here watched the whole thing. And the company will be calling law enforcement first thing Monday morning," Rosalind added, calm as anything. Pamela looked at Kendall's empty chair. She looked at the door Kendall had walked through. She looked at Dale standing next to me. And whatever had been keeping her going, the years of careful work, the managed story, the whole performance, simply ran out. She left. This time she didn't stop at the door. The dinner wound down slowly over the following hour. Guests found Dale and said the kinds of things people say when they don't have words big enough for what they just watched, but they want him to know they're still there. Gerald held his arm for a moment. One of the company bosses said quietly that Dale had people around him who cared. Small, real gestures that meant more than anything big could have. Rosalind found Dale before she left for the night. "Monday morning, HR will lock your retirement accounts completely," she told him. "No money out, no changes, nothing moves until we have gone through every single document in that chain. Based on what came out tonight, I expect this to be sent to law enforcement before the week is over." Dale nodded. "Thank you for being here tonight, Rosalind. You didn't have to do any of this. I have watched you build that retirement for 26 years, she said. It was not going to be on my watch that someone took it from you. Marcus and I drove back to Durham on an empty highway, the city lights of Greensboro fading behind us into flat, dark fields. Neither of us said anything for a long time. You knew, I finally said. Before tonight. You knew about the forms. About 3 weeks, Marcus said. Rosalind called me 2 months ago with what she had found. I spent the time between that call and tonight going through your phone records, getting both signatures on the forms checked by an expert, and going through the email account information against the company's own records. I was not going to bring any of it to your father until I could stand behind every single piece of it. Why didn't you tell me? He was quiet for a moment. Because if I had been wrong, if any single piece of it had turned out to be a mix-up or a paperwork mistake, I would have been one more person handing you hope about your father and then yanking it back. You've had enough of that. I needed to be sure before I put it in front of you. That was Marcus. Completely. He worked in certainties. He loved uncertainties. There is one more thing, he said. When I was going through your phone records, I found something specific. The night of Dale's birthday, 3 years ago, after you left the voicemail, you also sent a text. I knew exactly what I had written. Happy birthday, Dad. I'm so sorry I can't be there. I love you. Please call me when you get a chance. It was read, Marcus said. The records show it was opened at 11:48 that same night. I sat with that. He saw it. Someone saw it. Someone opened it, Marcus said. And deleted it. And added your number to the blocked list. Before sunrise the next morning. I thought about Pamela sitting somewhere in the house I had grown up in, reading the words I love you, Dad, off a phone screen and choosing to erase them. I stared out at the dark highway for the rest of the drive. Marcus didn't fill the silence. He always understood when silence was the right response. The week after that arrived the way real things do, not all at once but in pieces. By Thursday, the HR team at Dale's company in Greensboro had finished their early review. The signature check found 11 specific ways the signature on the fake form didn't match Dale's real records. The email account that sent the form was traced to a name matching Pamela's name before she was married. Dale's original paperwork was formally put back. Nadia Okafor Whitfield, 55%, estate of Gloria Whitfield, 45%. Exactly as Dale had written it 12 years earlier. Dale met with a divorce attorney in Greensboro on Friday. By the time he got back home from that meeting, Pamela had already come and gone. She had taken everything she wanted while he was out and left her house key on the kitchen counter. No conversation. Just an empty space where 20 years had been. Kendall sent me an email that same weekend. 3 short lines. She said she had not known the signature was fake. She said she should have said something sooner about other things she had seen. She said she was sorry. I read it 4 times. I didn't write back right away, not because I wanted to punish her, but because she deserved a real, honest answer and I needed time to figure out what that answer actually was. Dale called me on Sunday morning. It was the first time in 3 years his name had come up on my phone screen as someone calling me. We sat in silence for about 10 seconds after I picked up. I don't know where to start, he said. You already started, I told him. This phone call is the start. He breathed out. Long and unsteady. I want you to know I'm wearing the watch, he said. I had to think for a moment before I understood which one he meant. When I was 16, about 3 months after Mom passed, I had saved up money from a part-time shift at a copy shop near our house and bought Dale a birthday present. It was a $20 watch from the clearance rack at a department store. The only thing I could afford that felt like a real gift. The glass on the face already had a small scratch in it when I gave it to him. He wore it for about 4 months before Pamela gave him a much nicer one, and I had figured the $20 one was long gone. He had kept it in his dresser drawer, underneath the expensive one. Good, I said. That is a real start. 3 weeks after the banquet, I drove up to Greensboro and pulled into Dale's driveway for the first time in 3 years. Marcus parked around the block. Take whatever time you need, he said. I'll be right here. The front door was unlocked. The house smelled different, less of Pamela's scented candles, more like its older self. The living room felt quieter. More space where things had been. In the kitchen, sitting on the same scratched floor I had walked on since I was 9 years old, was the old oak dining table. Mom had found it at an estate sale and Dale had sanded and refinished it as her birthday gift. When Pamela replaced it with a marble top set, I had assumed it went to donation. But Dale had stored it, and in the weeks since the banquet he had brought it home, sanded it down again and refinished it himself. The surface was darker now, richer from all those years in storage. When I put my palm flat on it, the wood was warm. On the wall behind the table, in a simple plain frame, was a photograph of my mother. Gloria at a summer cookout, head tilted back mid-laugh, eyes closed. Taken before she was sick. Hanging exactly where she had always deserved to be. Dale was in the kitchen doorway. He looked like a man who hadn't slept enough in weeks. He looked like someone still working through the rubble of a story he had believed for too long. But he was standing. He poured 2 mugs of plain coffee and put one in front of me. I looked at the watch on his wrist. The $20 one. The scratched face. "You actually kept it," I said. "Back of my dresser drawer," he said. "Underneath the nice one." He turned it over in his palm. "I think I always knew which one actually meant something," he said. "We didn't fix everything that afternoon. We didn't need to. We sat at my mother's table and drank our coffee and existed in the same room together, which was more than we had managed in 3 years. That was a beginning. This story has stayed with you. If you've been sitting here recognizing pieces of your own life in what I've shared, I want you to do something for me right now. Hit that subscribe button. 'Cause I have more stories like this one, and every single person who subscribes tells me that there are real people out here who need to hear them. And drop your city in the comments below. Tell me where you're watching from. Every time I read those comments, it reminds me that these stories connect people across thousands of miles, and that matters more to me than I can say. People ask me whether I have forgiven Dale. The honest answer is that forgiveness isn't a single moment. It's not a decision you make once and it's done. It's something you have to keep choosing, sometimes every single day, sometimes more than once in the same day. There are mornings when I wake up and I'm genuinely okay. There are other mornings when I remember the feel of that cold floor and the sound of my grandmother's dress tearing, and I have to make a choice on purpose about whether I am going to carry that with me into the day or set it down. I'm working on it. That's the most honest thing I can say. Here is something I had to learn the hard way. Saying you accept an apology and actually rebuilding trust are 2 completely different things that happen on completely different schedules. You can mean one completely and still need a long time for the other. Both can be true at once, and one doesn't cancel the other out. I don't hate Pamela. I have tried and I simply cannot hold on to it. She was a woman who had been walked out on once and quietly made a decision that she would never be left with nothing again, no matter what it cost. What she did was deeply wrong. The forgery crossed from wrong into criminal. But the fear behind it, the terror of being left behind and having nothing, I understand that fear in a way I can't fully put into words. Understanding it doesn't excuse a single thing she did. It just keeps my anger pointed in the right direction instead of spreading everywhere. Here is where things stand now. The divorce between Dale and Pamela was finalized a few months after the banquet. Under North Carolina law, money that was gotten through fraud doesn't get split up in a divorce. Pamela got nothing from Dale's retirement savings. Company's lawyers and HR formally handed the fake paperwork over to the district attorney's office in Guilford County. As of when I recorded this, that process was still going. Pamela moved to Fayetteville to stay with her older sister. Kendall is working through her business debt on a payment plan she set up herself. No access to Dale's money, no shortcuts, no safety net. She sent me a second email a few weeks after the first. It was longer. She didn't ask to be forgiven. She just described honestly what it had felt like to grow up with a father who left one day and never looked back, and how badly she had needed Dale in her life to be real and lasting, and how that need had made her willing not to ask too many questions. I read it twice. I haven't written back yet, but I kept it. Because she deserves a real answer, and I'm still figuring out what that looks like. Rosalind Chambers retired the same quarter Dale did. She got a formal thank you from HR for catching and reporting the fake forms. She and Dale still send each other the occasional message. She sends him retirement planning articles. He reads the headlines. Gerald still works at the company in Greensboro. He still checks in on Dale regularly. Marcus is still doing financial fraud investigations out of Raleigh. Still checks every number twice. Till the most steady, reliable person I have ever known. About a month after the banquet, Dale and I had lunch together. Just the two of us. No one else. A small diner in Greensboro we used to go to on Saturday mornings when I was young, and he'd sometimes take me along before heading out to one of his job sites. Vinyl booths, paper menus, coffee in thick ceramic mugs. The kind of place that looks exactly the same as it did 20 years ago and probably will for 20 more. He was wearing the $20 watch. I ordered scrambled eggs and black coffee, the same thing I always ordered as a kid when I was trying to seem like I belonged at an adult table. He ordered the same thing. We talked about small stuff. The weather. A bridge inspection project I had coming up near Asheville. What he actually wanted to do with his retirement now that it was really his. He mentioned wanting to get back into restoring furniture, maybe doing some work with a trades program for young people in Guilford County. Near the end of the meal, he set his fork down and looked at me with the particular focused attention of a man who has been sitting with something he wants to say for a while and is finally ready. Your mama would have been real proud of the woman you became, Nadia. I looked across that table at him. She would have been proud of both of us, I said, for finding our way back. He picked up his coffee mug. I picked up mine. The most expensive thing in the world can't buy back the time you let go to waste. But a scratched $20 watch from a clearance rack can remind you every single morning to stop wasting whatever time you still have left. Here is where everything stands. Pamela divorced. Got nothing from the retirement accounts. Criminal case submitted. Living in Fayetteville. Kendall, paying off her own debts on her own schedule. No shortcuts. Rosalind, retired with a commendation and the quiet satisfaction of someone who did the right thing at exactly the right moment. Gerald, still in Greensboro. Still checking on Dale. Marcus, my husband. Financial fraud investigator out of Raleigh. Person I trust most in this world. Dale, 4 chairs at Mom's oak dining table in Greensboro. A $20 watch on his wrist. Her photograph on the wall. A blocked contacts list that has been empty since the night he checked it. And me, Nadia Okafor Whitfield. 33 years old. Durham, North Carolina. Licensed structural engineer. Still building things designed to hold weight even when the ground underneath shifts. On Dale's kitchen table, right next to the photograph of my mother, there is a picture of me and Dale at a job site in Greensboro. I am 11 years old. I am wearing a hard hat that is enormous on my head. I am grinning so wide my eyes have almost disappeared. He has one arm around my shoulders and he is laughing. The whole world looks completely fine in that photograph. I used to carry it with me everywhere. Now it lives on the table. Right where it was always supposed to be. That is my story. And before you go, I want to ask you something I genuinely mean. If you could say one true thing to the family member who has hurt you the most, just one honest thing, not to fix anything, not to win anything back, just to finally let it exist out loud, what would it be? Write it in the comments. I read every single one personally, and I mean that completely. This story made you feel even a little less alone tonight in whatever you're carrying. That is everything I was hoping for when I decided to share it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do it right now. Takes 2 seconds, it costs you absolutely nothing, and it means everything to this channel. Every subscriber is another person who will be there for the next story, and I have so many more that need to be told. Hit the bell so you never miss one. Share this with someone who needs to hear it tonight. And I will see you in the next one. There is another story linked right below this one that I spent a very long time figuring out how to tell. I think once you hear it, you will understand exactly why.